Hello Internet, this is Sophia. The Turkish international news outlet TRT World has a video titled Zionism Explained. Its description of that video is as follows, and I quote, "This is the meaning and history of a very contested movement, Zionism." The video has been out for over a year now, but I just recently stumbled upon it. I wonder how accurate their description of Zionism is. Let's take a look at their video and find out.
What is Zionism? Zionism is a political and national movement aimed at creating and sustaining a Jewish state in the Middle East.
No objections from me there. So far, you've pretty much nailed what Zionism is. Let's hope that the rest of your video remains as spot on as you've been so far.
Now, according to many traditional and Orthodox Jewish teachings, Jews are forbidden by God to have their own state until their Messiah comes. But this hasn't stopped Zionism from pushing towards that very goal.
Okay, yes. Some interpretations of traditional Jewish teaching do indeed forbid the creation of a Jewish state until the Messiah comes. However, this is far from being a universal consensus even among Orthodox Jews. Furthermore, there are plenty of people, such as myself, who are ethnically and culturally Jewish, but as far as religion goes, have evolved past the need to believe that the universe was created by a supernatural being who has given us edicts to live by, formulated under the dictates of mysterious, i.e., unverifiable reasoning. For those of us in that group, religious teachings that oppose the creation of a Jewish state without first waiting around for some future mythological being carries about as much weight as the teachings often espoused by the very same groups that there is something inherently sinful about same-sex couples, or that trans women such as myself are sinning by daring to live as our authentic selves. In short, it should come as no surprise that secular Jews, who by the way constituted the overwhelming bulk of the Zionist movement, are not deterred from advocating our right to self-determination in our own ancestral homeland just because there are some interpretations of our culture's ancient mythology that object to it.
Let's go back to 1897. A man named Theodor Herzl formed the World Zionist Organization. He advocated for the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine, and is even mentioned in the Israeli Declaration of Independence. It was tough to be a Jew in Europe in that time, with anti-Semitic sentiments rising. Herzl felt the only way for his people to live in peace was for them to have their own country. Palestine was chosen.
Palestine was chosen. That's it? You make it sound as though Theodor Herzl just closed his eyes and spun a globe around and placed his finger randomly on the globe to stop it, and it just happened to land on Palestine. That could not possibly be further from the reality, though. The reason for selecting that area was because that area was our home. Anti-Jewish attitudes were not exactly a new thing. For centuries, Jews had constantly been treated as outsiders, with periods of relative tolerance repeatedly turning out to merely be preludes to periods of intensified persecution. Yes, for most Jews it had been several centuries since our ancestors had last lived in what was by that time referred to as Palestine. But however long ago that was, that had still been the last time that our ancestors were free from having to live as exiles.
And a popular slogan started spreading around the world. A land without a people, for a people without a land. The only problem was, Palestine wasn't a land without a people.
Actually, the problem for your argument is that slogan is not a Zionist slogan. The phrase originated not from the Zionist movement, but from the Christian Restoration movement, often referred to these days as Christian Zionism. And though a handful of actual Zionists did indeed use the phrase, it never went mainstream in the Zionist movement.
Then there was a turning point, World War II. Following the Holocaust, the flow of Jews to occupied Palestine boomed, and many Western countries began backing the idea of a Jewish state in Palestine.
So basically, it took an unspeakably horrific massacre of the Jewish people that topped all the lesser massacres of the Jewish people over the centuries to get people to finally realize that Jews are sufficiently persecuted to necessitate a state of our own. But despite that, people like you are still very good at forgetting that. But no, you are not anti-Jewish at all. Not in the least bit.
Although a UN resolution recommended both an independent Arab and Jewish state in the region, Israel went ahead and declared their independence in 1948 and was recognized by US President Harry Truman that very same day.
How is Israel declaring independence something that was done despite the UN recommending both states? This totally makes no sense. What is despite the UN's recommendation is not the fact that Jewish Palestine, hereby more commonly known as Israel, did declare independence, but the fact that Arab Palestine did not. Who prevented that is indeed a serious matter, but if you look at what actually happened, you will find that Israel was not the culprit.
In the period after its establishment, Israel carried out an invasion of neighboring countries, and at the end of 1967's Six-Day War, Israel extended its control in the region.
What? You are saying that Israel carried out invasions? You are completely ignoring the reality that every single one of those wars that you are labeling as an invasion was actually a defensive war. Specifically, the Six-Day War was started by Egypt. It was Egypt that closed the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping in express violation of prior agreement. Israel responded by attempting to negotiate the matter. Egypt in turn responded by insisting that the Straits of Tiran would remain closed to Israeli vessels, which, as I just stated, was a violation of prior agreement, and then mobilizing its troops along Israel's border. Such a direct threat to Israel could not be ignored, and I doubt that you would expect any other sovereign state on earth to ignore such a blatant threat.
In practice, their goals of justice and peace have been lost to many of the non-Jewish people living in the region. The Israeli military has been illegally controlling and occupying much of Palestine.
Again, when people are violently attacking your civilians, you have not only the right, but the duty to respond. And yes, what happens to Arabic Palestinians at those times is indeed tragic, but if you blame Israel, you are blaming the wrong party. Instead, you should blame the terrorists that launch attacks on Israel from those areas and use the civilians as human shields. As for the bit about those attacks being as a result of Israel occupying the land in the first place, if you are referring to Judea and Samaria, also frequently referred to as the West Bank, please refer back to my previous point about those areas being captured as a result of defensive wars. And if you are referring to any other place in the area, see my earlier points about the actual history of Israel. Is Israel's human rights record spotless? Of course not, and I would be foolish to argue that it is. However, it is important that whatever standard Israel is held up to, it must be a standard that you are willing to hold any other nation up to as well, including and even especially Israel's rivals. If you delegitimize the very existence of the one and only Jewish state for failing to live up to human rights records that far exceeds that which any of its rivals can live up to, or even come close to living up to, it becomes very difficult to take seriously your claims that you are not anti-Jewish. The same goes when you post a video like the one that I just reviewed that smears that one and only Jewish state with a ton of assertions that are blatantly misleading at very best and are at times overtly false. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button and share it with your friends so that they can enjoy it too. And if you haven't already done so, Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you will receive notifications when I upload new videos in the future. Until next time, see ya!